It is a Monday morning, the 14th day of October 2024, and Health Monday with Jared's here with us this morning. Jacob, where'd you say he was?
He's in Scotland, I think, a long way away.
Other side of Chillerberg over in there somewhere.
That's right. That's Coosa County.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Hey, we appreciate you coming this morning for Health Monday. We're going to talk about something this morning that affects almost every family in some shape, form, or fashion, and it's dementia. And, you know, we don't like to talk about it, but it's something that's real, and we must discuss it. And let's get started this morning.
Well, dementia is something we have to discuss because it does affect everybody, and we discussed it on this show before. But I think, especially with this crowd, this is so common, and we've all dealt with it in some way, shape, or form. I don't think we can talk about it too much. First, let me just say this. Most of the time we think about dementia, we think about memory loss, and that's a good way to think about it in general terms. But there are a lot of other things associated with dementia. You have people who have trouble finding the right words. You know, sometimes you run into somebody, they just can't put their thoughts together. Another really common thing is the inability to perform normal tasks. I've told this probably on this show before, but one of the first signs of my dad's dementia was you'd ask him to go change the batteries in something that he'd done for 30 years, and he couldn't figure out how to get the batteries, take them to the device, and change them. So not just memory loss, but the inability to perform tasks, trouble finding words, a lot of trouble communicating in social activities too.
Alzheimer's, dementia, one and the same?
Good question. You know, I think sometimes we associate the term Alzheimer's and dementia, consider those things to be exactly the same. They're not. Let me say this the best way I know how. Alzheimer's is a certain type of dementia. It's probably the most common type of dementia, but it's only one type. You may have heard the terms before, Lewy body dementia,
yes,
or vascular dementia, or what's the other big one? I'm losing my mind. Frontotemporal dementia. I don't know how I could forget that one, by the way. That's what my dad was first diagnosed with. That just has to do with a certain type of the brain that is affected. So those are not the only ones, but those are multiple types of dementia that are not Alzheimer's. So just to be clear, not all dementia is Alzheimer's.
So just because I slip every once in a while and miss something or forget something doesn't necessarily mean that I have dementia.
It doesn't. You know, we all forget things from time to time. In fact, I'll tell you, this is a true story right here. I went to my dad's neurologist probably 5 to 10 years ago because I was forgetting things all the time. And I said, look, I mean, am I getting dementia already in my early 40s? And he was really kind to me, but he basically laughed at me and said, no, you're simply trying to do too much. There's too many things on your brain and you can't remember it all. It's called stress and living life, right? You've got teenagers, you've got a highly stressful job, you know, so chill, you don't have dementia.
So let me just drop this in. Since you brought this up, is it hereditary?
Yes, it is, and we can talk some more about that in a minute, but
okay.
There are certain, first of all, it's not always known what causes a person's dementia. In some cases we can identify it, but it's not always known. It is thought to be hereditary, and there's a certain type of gene that's found in some dementia patients that can be passed down to their kids. So yes, it can be hereditary. Okay,
so you know, what are some of the causes of this?
Well, some of the causes are, we'll just start with that. Some of the causes are a gene that you might inherit from your family, all right? Another one of the causes would be some sort of traumatic brain injury. You know, we end up seeing people like boxers or football players.
The guy that's riding a horse, remember?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a certain type of brain injury. We also have, and so some of those cause permanent types of dementia. There are also not permanent, that's poor wording, but not permanent types. One of the single most common causes of that would be urinary tract infections. You guys, I bet you've experienced this maybe in your family and friends. We get calls all the time. I'm extremely confused, but I also have urinary pain at the same time, or urinary frequency. It turns out that the older you get, when you have a UTI, the more likely you are to have confusion. And remember, isn't that interesting? Probably the most common cause of confusion in elderly patients is linked to UTI. When you get them antibiotics, you get it treated, you get rid of the UTI, the memory function comes back. So that's pretty interesting, right? Sometimes, and this is not 100% conclusive, but there's some evidence that low levels of B vitamins and low levels of D vitamins might contribute to memory loss, and those are things that we could correct easily.
Who's at risk?
Well, as you might imagine, for almost everything we talk about at this show, the older you get, the more likely you are to get dementia. With that said, and this is really important, dementia is not a normal part of aging. I think that some people just assume when I get to a certain age, I'm going to have dementia, but it's not a normal part of aging. Not every person who's over 65 has dementia, but of course, the older you get, the risk is greater. A person with a family history, which we've already talked about, the truth is that there's a very long history of this in my family with my grandparents, great uncles and such. So Jacob and I, in some ways we feel like we're doomed, although that's not necessarily true. People who have, this seems like something we say every time too, people who never get any kind of exercise, a sedentary lifestyle, people who do not exercise their brains. This is one of the things that's the most important thing. When you can keep your mind active, when you can participate in a job, when you can work a crossword puzzle, when you can find ways to stimulate your brain, that's helpful.
Like doing news every day. I'm serious.
Well, listen, that's actually true. So when you have to work at something to problem solve with your brain, it keeps your brain active. And so that's something that we want to participate in for sure.
So let's talk about some complications from this.
Well, if you've had any experience with dementia, you know where this leads. Now, I'm not talking about the temporary causes like a UTI, right?
Yeah.
You can treat that, it can be cleared up. But when you're talking about a person with Alzheimer's or Lewy body or a vascular damage, that usually happens, by the way, when a person has a stroke, and then that causes damage to the brain. Those permanent types of dementia, the person gets progressively worse. And even in the face of taking the medications that are prescribed, they get progressively worse. And what happens is the memory loss gets worse, the ability to perform routine tasks gets worse. And then because the mind controls everything in the body, the worse it gets, you start to be unable to do other things, right? My dad's in a place right now, he's having real trouble walking. So eventually, your brain is not able to send the signals to the rest of your body to do the things you've done all your life.
Right.
And you know this too, and you guys have heard this, I'm sure. A lot of times these patients end up having trouble swallowing, and if it gets to a certain point, a person ends up can't feeding themselves. Some of them end up on feeding tubes. Maybe the family makes a different decision. But and then in the very end, the truth is that a lot of times these patients get confined to a bed because their mind literally will not work their body, and their body begins to shut down.
Can it be prevented?
That's a good question, and I think the answer is there are things we can do that will make it less likely for us to develop dementia. I don't know if it can be completely prevented. However, we all need to be thinking in this direction, which is simply we need to be eating healthy diets. Dementia has been linked to some unhealthy diets. The more processed food we eat, for example, the more likely we are to get it. The less exercise we get, there's some link to dementia and cholesterol. Of course, the less exercise we get, the more heart conditions we have, the worse our diabetes is. So heart disease and diabetes are risk factors for dementia. So, and then we talked about the vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin B, those kind of things, and keeping your mind active. Those are the things that we can do.
Right before we go this morning, is there treatments for this at all?
There are, and these treatments that you might get prescribed at the pharmacy, they are designed to increase the amount of these healthy chemicals in your brain. They're associated with memory and thinking. they might work for a while, and they probably do work for a while. But what they do is slow down your decline. Right? You might get worse at this rate without the medicine.
Sure.
You might get worse at this rate with the medicine. So you want to take those medicines, but just understand they're not going to stop it, and there's actually going to come a time when they don't work anyway.
Yeah. We've talked about this for a long time. We're out of time this morning, up against the clock this morning. Jared, appreciate you coming this morning and talking about dementia. If you want more information on this, get with them at the pharmacy, and maybe we can do another segment on this. It's very, very intriguing, especially to older generations. So maybe we can do another segment on this later on. Jared, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming by. Help Monday.